So how was it doing volunteer firefighting?
Oh, well, that was actually a pretty fascinating job.
So I've talked to firefighters before, but it just seems like there might be a different dynamic doing the volunteer work.
I suspect there is. I've talked to a few other firefighters. The volunteer firefighting is mostly structure fire. It's very seldom wildland fire, although occasionally we'd go out on a, like I say, that first one where I first met the firefighters, that was wildland, so to speak.
Yeah.
But then the BLM took it over, and the municipal fire department backed out. But so it's primarily structure fires. The Post Falls department at that time was amazingly active. We averaged about 800 calls a year.
Yeah, it seems like quite a bit.
It really does.
Yeah.
The vast majority of those were chimney fires.
That makes sense.
As it turns out, what we normally did for a chimney fire was we would go in and say, do you have a glass of water? Get a glass of water, throw it in the stove, and close all the vents and all the air out on the stove. That glass of water would immediately turn to steam and go up the chimney and extinguish the fire. So
it's good to know.
Yeah, so there's a little tip for dealing with a chimney fire. But then at that point, we'd go up on the roof, take the chimney cap off, look down the chimney, make sure there's no embers, and we'd, spray a water extinguisher down in there if you saw any glowing in the chimney. And of course, it's always because the chimney wasn't maintained, wasn't cleaned.
Yeah, didn't get all the soot and the creosote out.
Right. So that was the vast majority of them. Occasionally, we actually had good's probably not the right word, but active fires, so to speak. You'd get the occasional barn fire where they'd put hay in too green, and then that green hay combusts. Yeah. And,
because it's decomposing and generates heat, right?
Right. And it generates a lot of heat, apparently.
Yeah.
I can remember one of those fires that I went out and was running a hose into the smoldering hay. And as I swept across an area, I just have a big flare up all of a sudden. I was like, what was that? And I'd sweep across it again with the water and it'd flare up again. And I didn't know what was going on until I kind of went over and kicked around a little bit of it. Well, there was a chainsaw laying under the hay right there. Well, the chainsaw case is magnesium.
Yeah.
So that magnesium actually started burning. And then when you put water on magnesium when it's burning, it actually separates the water into its constituents of hydrogen and oxygen, which are also extremely flammable.
Right.
So every time you hit that magnesium with water, it would make it flare. So that was kind of interesting. Working with the fire department, though, was a lot of fun. It kind of ends up consuming your life. That was the people I socialized with.
Yeah.
We had something going on with the fire department every day, whether it was a training, a barbecue, going to dinner with somebody else in the fire department, having a movie night at the station. There was, like I said, literally something to do with the fire department every night when I was on there, which was good. It was fun.
Yeah. But I mean, that on top of having a regular day job.
Sometimes it got, Yeah. And of course, I lived fairly close to the station to where when the all call went out, my pager went off at 2:00 in the morning. I would be usually the first one at the station. I had to drive 2, 3, 4.5 blocks to get to the station. So, being the first one there, I usually didn't get to go out on the attack because as the first one there, your job is you go in. Well, first thing, you unlock the door. You go in, you turn the lights on, you open the doors, you start the trucks, then you go put your turnouts on. Usually, by the time I got the trucks lit and got my turnouts on, the first 2 trucks were out. Because other people, because they weren't the first one there doing the other jobs,
right?
Their first thing was go in and get their turnouts on. So it just worked out that was what I did a lot of the time. Occasionally I'd get on the attack truck, or sometimes on the pump truck. But It's kind of exhilarating going into a burning house. You put your SCBA on, your self-contained breathing apparatus. You put that on.
Yeah.
And you go in, and you can get in there, and it can be just astoundingly hot in there. You don't realize how hot it is because your turnouts insulate you extremely well.
Yeah. Yeah, they keep most of that off of you.
Yeah,
but
and even that Lexan shield, that clear shield on your helmet, it's surprising how little radiant heat goes through that. I have seen, it didn't happen to me, but a couple of the guys actually melted that clear Lexan shield on their helmet because it got that hot.
Wow.
And they didn't suffer any burns. But you go in, you put your SCBA on, you'd go in for 20 minutes, and usually that's about all the air you had. There's an alarm on your SCBA that starts going off when your pressure starts getting too low.
They use like oxygen tanks?
It's compressed air, just like a scuba tank.
Okay.
They actually have or at least at the time, I'm assuming they still do, have a system there where they can pressurize the tanks up in the station.
Yeah.
And I want to say that pressure is up to about 3,600 PSI in that tank.
Wow.
Which is usually, I think, about 20 minutes of air for most people.
Do the trucks have a repressurization unit?
They don't. At least they didn't then.
Yeah. Like something where, I mean, if it's going to be a difficult fire to battle, you can come back out, plug your tanks in and refill them.
Right.
Go back in.
Generally speaking, there's about, I want to say there was 7 to 10 SCBA on each truck. And generally there was 4 guys per truck.
Okay. So they could switch
sometimes
out.
6. Yeah. I want to say they quit letting anybody ride on the tailboard of the truck about the time I was in there. I did a little bit of that.
All the way on the back of it?
Yeah. Which that's a little interesting.
Why'd they stop that?
I think they just deemed it was unsafe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Based on what data? Did anybody ever fall off?
Who knows? I mean, you would assume somebody did somewhere, or, I mean, when the truck goes through a significant bump, there's times when your feet definitely left that tailboard. You were up in the air.
Yeah, I can see that.
But you better be hanging on too. But it was, generally speaking, pretty comfortable to ride back there. I actually rode back there at least once on the freeway.
I don't know. I can see there's a lot of things I think that OSHA is good for.
Right.
Like going back to you working at the zinc separator plant.
Right.
Like there's a lot of things there that if some OSHA rules had been applied and they had been forced to do, some stuff to make it a little bit safer of an environment to work in.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely would have been good. But I also think that there's a lot of things that they do that are just ridiculous.
Without a doubt.
And unnecessary.
Yep.
And I mean, they only do it to collect fees.
Yeah. Yep.
And the thing is now, they, at least in Idaho, I don't know if they've done it, if it's like a national thing, but at least in Idaho, if you're caught doing something at work that violates OSHA laws, you get fined as well.
Oh, okay.
So like seatbelts on forklifts are a huge thing. It's something that we're preached about all day, every day. We have they went through and they took all of our forklifts and installed engine shutoffs. Oh. So if your seatbelt isn't clicked in and put on, then the engine won't even start. Okay. And if it unclicks, the engine will turn off.
Okay.
Like that's how far it's gone.
Right.
Which most people just click it in and then sit on it.
Sure.
But that's the thing is, so a seatbelt fine is, I mean, it can be up to something ridiculous, like $500 to $1,000 or something like that. So the company gets fined and they have to pay that.
Right.
But then you get fined as well. You get ticketed for it.
Okay.
Where it used to be just the company did.
Right.
And so it was on the company to be like, hey, these are the rules. This is what you have to do, blah, blah, blah. And then they provide all the safety gear and equipment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of crap that OSHA does that's just like, really?
Well, there is. I built houses for several years. And they want you to put on a harness and clip in if you're setting trusses, for example.
Yeah. We have to wear fall harnesses.
Right.
If you're above 4.5 feet.
Right. Well, when you're setting trusses,
which means you have
to clip in.
Yeah, exactly. You have to clip in to something that's high enough to where if you fall off of that 4.5 foot platform, you're not going to hit the ground.
Right.
Okay, well, I have a 6 foot lanyard. So that means I have to get up another 6 feet at least to clip onto something so that while I'm on this 4.5 foot platform, if I slip, I won't hit the ground.
Right.
It's dumb.
Yeah. Like I say, setting trusses and you're supposed to be clipped into something. There's nothing to clip into.
Yeah.
And you can't set trusses if you're clipped into something.
Right.
You got to walk trusses down a wall.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the time they're just doing it with a crane now, and the guy just is standing there waiting for that truss to come to him.
Yeah.
I can remember several times where you set a bundle of trusses up on the end of a wall, and you grab one, you slide it out, you step to the other side of it, you pick it up, you walk it down the wall.
Yeah.
And, I hold one end and Bill holds the other end, and we walk down the wall.
It just seems like there's a lot of things that are built into it now that really all they do is make it possible for OSHA to collect fees and then also create a section of industry for companies like Grainger who make safety gear to just come up with more ridiculous shit to sell to abide by these OSHA rules.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It just
here we make a special apparatus just for clipping off two trusses.
Yeah. Here, make a roll for this device.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it's ridiculous.
Yep. But,
like some of that stuff, it's like, okay, could you do something to make this safer? Yes, you could.
Right.
But honestly, and if I'm being 100% honest here, if you're fucking dumb enough to get hurt doing that, maybe you deserve to not be here.
You either should be taken out of the gene pool, or you shouldn't be doing this job. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Clipping into a man lift when you're in a basket that's waist high and there's nothing above you, and if you clip in and you fall out, you're going to dangle from the man lift, and how do you get back to it anyway?
Yeah. Well, and then somebody from the ground would have to come over and let it down.
Presumably, there's somebody else there to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's definitely one. I'm not going to either admit to nor deny that I've ever been in a boom lift that I drove over something way too fast and then turned it into a catapult and nearly launched myself off of it just for fun.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I had a...
But I mean, that's one of those things where if I fell out and I broke my legs or something, I'd be like, well, I guess I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
Yep. Yeah, so...
Preventing lawsuits, collecting fees.
And I think the lawsuit aspect, I think that's the biggest
that's probably the issue part of it, yeah.
Lawyers, I think, not to disparage lawyers too much, but there's too many of them.
Yeah, there's too many of them, and I don't know, they're just grubby.
They can be. Yeah, they can be.
Yeah. What's the difference between a hooker and a lawyer?
I don't know.
A hooker will stop fucking you after you're dead.
There you go. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't have much use for most of them. But
well, yeah. I mean, really, most people don't.
And hopefully,
we just create reasons for it.
Hopefully, I won't.
Yeah. Well, too many people are just so entitled.
Yeah.
I should have this and blah blah blah. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you deserve anything?
Yep.
The universe and the rest of the world doesn't owe you anything.
Well, that's the thing, and anymore they're getting to the point where people are thinking, well, you've got to give me a job. Mm-hmm. Well, and then they don't even want to work. They just, you've got to give me a paycheck.
No, I don't.
So, yeah. And
if you're not going to show up and you're not going to do the job you're hired for, then no.
Right.
You don't get a paycheck.
Yep.
And you don't get to keep your job.
Yep.
Well, and people that they come in, and granted, I mean, with inflation and everything, stuff is just so much more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's out of control.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. You know, and I get that, and I don't disagree with that at all. Mm-hmm. But people have lost their will to work and to actually be productive.
Right.
They just want to show up, and they don't give a shit about what they're doing or anybody they're working with. They just want to make their paycheck and they want to leave, but then they're pissed off when they don't make more.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, if you want more money, then you need to make yourself more valuable. What can you do? And if you're not going to do it, then why do I have any reason to pay you more?
Right.
What do you want?
Right.
It's like, well, I want $24 an hour. But are you worth $24 an hour?
What are you going to do for that $24 an hour?
Yeah. Are you actually going to work all day, every day, and do your job and do it well, and learn how to do other things to make yourself more valuable, so then I can justify paying you even more than that 24?
Right. Yep.
And show me that you're worth the money I'm going to pay you.
Right.
Or are you just going to show up and you're going to maybe do a couple of things, and then you're going to disappear to the bathroom for 2 hours, and then come out, do a couple other things, and then go take a nap somewhere where we might not find you for another 2 hours?
Right. You know, and when I worked at Bunker Hill in the zinc refinery, there was an awful lot of that. That, of course, that was all union work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
which, I mean, again, double-edged sword. Unions do good things, but they also do a lot of bad stuff.
You know, and I think the unions definitely were needed when they started them.
Yeah. When you have a lot of shady business owners and companies that are just working people to death and not giving them jack shit, or, you know, like the old mining days, you know, oh, my soul to the company store. Yep. You know, they didn't pay you money. They paid you like in company chits. Right. And you could only buy stuff from their store because it wasn't worth dick. Right. Yeah, that's horseshit.
Right. But no, and you know, I drive around now, and every place you go by has help wanted signs up. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, some of these fast food places are starting people out $14, $15, $17 an hour.
Oh, a lot of them are starting people out at $20 an hour. Right. It's like, really? You want $20 an hour to flip burgers? Right. When I was in high school, that's what those jobs were for. Right. It was for money to pay for gas and weed, rubbers, and beer. Yep. Yep. I mean, that's it. That's what those jobs are for.
To get money to go out and party.
Yeah, it's for high school kids to learn how to go to a job every day and make enough money to have some fun.
Right. And I hear the conversations about these needing to increase minimum wages because you can't make a living working at McDonald's or you know, working fast food. Yeah. Well, that's not what you're supposed to be doing, working fast food. Yeah. It's not a career.
Exactly.
It's a job.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're gonna put in the effort to move up to management. Right. McDonald's pays their managers actually really well.
They do.
Some of them make 6 figures, surprisingly enough. Right. But I mean, flipping burgers and cleaning tables. Right. You know, that's not what that's for. Right. It's not meant to feed a family of 5, you know, and have 2 cars, and live in a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Absolutely. With satellite TV, and everybody's got cell phones and all. Yep. It's not what it's for.
No. And that's people. I don't know if people think that if they work anywhere, they should be able to have all of that.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's what people seem to think now, is that every job should pay a quote unquote living wage. Well, what is a living wage? Right. You know, a living wage to me means it pays for a roof over your head, enough food for one person, a single person to live. Yep. And a bus pass. Right. So you can get places.
And maybe buy a pair of pants and a shirt.
Yeah. That's about it. Yep. It's not meant for you to pay, you know, $5 a day for a Starbucks coffee. Right. And, you know, go to the movies all the time and party with your friends. That's not what it's for. Right. It is literally a living wage, which means surviving. Yep. And survival is not fun.
Right. So no, I think we've all done it, and we've hopefully moved on from it.
Right. And that's how it's always been. It's like, when you start out and you're young, it is survival. It is. And it sucks. You live in a house with 4 or 5 other guys. Yep. And you're partying a lot, but living in that house with 4 or 5 other guys, all splitting rent, makes things cheaper and easier on yourself.
Absolutely.
And it sucks. Yep. But then eventually, you go to classes, or you at least go to an apprenticeship, or you get experience doing something, and you move along, and it's that climb.
Right.
Everybody wants to start out in the middle.
At least.
Instead of at the bottom.
Right.
It's like, well, guess what? That's how it works.
Yeah, somebody's got to start out at the bottom.
Yeah.
So, yep.
If you want more money, then work harder.
Yep.
Or get an education of some sort. And I'm not saying necessarily college.
No, and I think college is not the answer for an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
They've been pushing college for so long that it's gotten to the point where if you don't have a 4-year degree, you can't get that job flipping burgers.
Yeah, well, and that's ridiculous too. I mean, there's so many places that say, 5 years experience plus, degree required, all this stuff, but then they're trying to hire younger people, to freshen up their workforce. It's like, where are you going to find somebody with a degree and 5 years experience in the age group that you're trying to hire from?
And the pay you're wanting to give them. Right.
Yeah.
So, yep. No, I think people like Mike Rowe, I think, have definitely done a good thing with pushing people to move into the trades.
Yeah.
I think you can make a good living working trades. When I joined a carpenters union years ago, I was an experienced carpenter. I actually joined the union as a journeyman. I tested in. Yeah. And joined as a journeyman, but they would take anybody 18 years or older with no experience and train them and pay them, put them on a job and pay them a decent wage. Right. And give them experience. Yeah. And train them how to work, train them how to build, whether it's residential or commercial or both. But
yeah, and I think there's like a fine line there, right? Because when you say decent wage, I think what people have to realize is that, well, what is a decent wage? Okay, maybe it's not as much as the veteran guy who's been working there for 50 years. Right. And maybe it's not quite as much as you would like, but depending on the trade, more than likely it's going to be more than you're going to make flipping burgers.
Absolutely.
Is it as much as you would want? Maybe not. Right. But look at what else you're getting. Yep. You're getting a company that's willing to pay you and also train you and give you skills that could be carried over into other trades. Or you more than likely.
A lot of the time then start your own company with those skills.
Right? Yeah.
And of course you got to be ambitious to do that too.
Yeah. But I mean, there's plumbing outfits and HVAC outfits and stuff, especially around here, that will take on apprentices.
Absolutely.
And then you do that for a couple, 2-3 years, and sure, they're going to give you the crap jobs. Oh, absolutely. You're going to be the one slogging down a trough full of crap, putting pipes in and stuff. Right. And that sucks. But you take a shower, you take your paycheck, and you learn something. Yep. And then at some point, you get to start a business, hire an apprentice, and make them do all that crap.
Absolutely.
You pay your dues.
Yep. You do. But you have somebody else do the things you didn't want to do.
Yeah, yeah. But then on the other side of that, still, companies also need to realize that things are tough. And yes, in order to get good people, you're going to have to pay a little bit more than you used to. Right. So it is a fine line, and it's a balancing act. It is. It's rough. Yep. But I think it's more so. I think it's more so on the people being so entitled and wanting really what they don't deserve.
I think that's a big factor in it. And I don't know if that goes to the participation trophy generation.
I think so. I think so.
Everybody gets a trophy for just showing up. Yeah. And they're told they did a great job, Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to bag on some kid, but right. I mean, being told like, hey, you didn't do good enough to win. I mean, that's an important thing.
And I mean, when I was a kid, it sucked not being the winner. Right. I mean, it just did.
But you know what you learned from that?
But I wasn't the winner most of the time.
Yeah. But I mean, you learned how to lose.
Right. Yep.
You learned how to say, okay, I didn't win, or I didn't even get third. But I mean, that's what your parents are there for. And that's what your peers are there for, is to come and say like, well, you did a good job here and you did great here, but these are the things that you struggled with. Right. So if you work on these things, come back strong next year, try again. Yep.
And sometimes, your legs are too short to run fast. You're not going to be a runner.
Yeah. Maybe there's just something about you that you're never going to be a Yul Brenner.
Right.
And that's just is what it is.
Yep.
Okay, well, find something else you're good at.
You know, yeah, your mom always put your artwork on the refrigerator, but it
doesn't make you
enough.
Picasso.
Right. But yep. And so I don't know how you fix what's going on, but
stop telling everyone they can do anything they want.
You know, and I think that's true. I think there's a lot of people that, you know, when I was a kid, one of the big things that everybody was told was, you could grow up to be president if you want to.
Yeah.
You just got to work hard and do it. Well, okay. I guess theoretically,
that's not untrue, right. But I mean, it's not true.
It's not. But no, I mean, it's just a case of.
I think there's context to that's missing.
There is.
Which is, if you're good at that,
right,
then you could do that.
Yep.
So the question is, what are you good at?
Right.
It's not just what do you want to do, like what are you good at?
Right.
And people are missing that.
They are. And I think, you know, I mean, I can remember taking those tests when I was in school. Mm-hmm. That, you know, I don't remember what they called them, but it was taking a test telling you what you're supposed to be good at, what kind of career you might be good at, what would be a good direction for you to lean in life.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate any of those were.
Yeah, aptitude test of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
And I don't know how many people actually went to that direction, but I'm sure a few did. A few people had to have taken that to heart.
Yeah.
But I never did.
Well, that's the thing, is just because, I mean, and it's so difficult. Like, just because your school counselor says that, you know, you'd be good at mopping floors in a peep show.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to take that advice.
Right.
But I mean, that is something that you should look at, take it into consideration. Where else could I apply that?
Right. Yep. And
I could be the best damn janitor at a warehouse, you know, on the planet. Amazon will pay me $1 million a year to clean their bathrooms.
Sure. Yep. But
it's all how you apply yourself.
Yeah. And, you know, everybody's got strengths. And if you figure out what those strengths are and apply them,
right,
there you go.
Right.
You know, of course, like I say, my thing is I've always been a case of I get bored with something and then I look for something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm the same way. I mean, the company I'm at now, I've been through several different departments. I've done a lot of different things, worn a lot of different hats there.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing.
Yep.
Like, I get to, I do something for X amount of time and I get really good at it, which, I mean, whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing.
Sure.
But then I get bored of it because I'm to the point where I can't progress anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, I want to do something else.
Right.
And I'm lucky that they've been good enough to where they understand that. I've always had bosses who get that, and they're just like, all right, what else do you want to do?
Right.
And then I'm like, how about this? And then I go apply for that. I mean, they don't just give me stuff.
Oh, sure.
I still have to go apply for a position and do an interview and show them that I'm willing and able to do it.
Right.
But they don't pigeonhole me into something and say, no, you can't do that because you're so good at this.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, and I mean,
they let me move around and do my own thing.
Yep.
And they know that they'll get results. So they just tell me what they want and then they stay the hell out of my way.
Absolutely.
Good enough for me.
Yeah. And if you're a motivated self-starter that can do that, that's fantastic.
Right.
And of course, not everybody's that way. So people have to be told every day what they need to do today.
Yep.
And, you know, but we need those people too.
Yeah, sure.
And then we've also got to have the people that pick this up and move it over there over and over and over all day, every day. And they can survive and they don't go crazy doing that.
Right.
You know?
Oh yeah.
And you know, I can't do that kind of job.
Right. But see, that's everybody realizing that that's their thing.
Yep.
And accepting it for what it is.
Yeah. And, you know, and I've known people that are in that kind of a job where all they're going to do is solder in 5 resistors on this board and pass it to the next person. Mm-hmm. And solder in 5 resistors on this board and pass it to the next person. And do that every day, all day long. and they don't have to think about what they're doing anymore. They can just sit there and think about all kinds of other stuff, and that makes them happy.
Yeah.
And, and then I've done things like, I guess we never talked about, I did roadside diesel truck repair.
Oh, really?
And,
so like semis and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the semi truck would break down on the side of the road, and they'd call us, and it was good money.
I bet. Diesel mechanics, yeah.
Sometimes it was fantastic work. Sometimes it was totally miserable.
Yeah. Well, especially when it's 15 below.
I've gone out and changed a turbocharger on the side of a truck when it was snowing and raining at 34 degrees at 2:00 in the morning, changing a turbocharger. And I got so frustrated, I was ready to walk away. I nearly threw my phone across the freeway that night.
Yeah.
Because my boss wouldn't answer the phone and come
of course
help
not.
me.
Of course not. Why would he do that?
Right.
Why the hell would he do that? Because then he'd have to be out there with you at 2 a.m. in 34 degrees.
Absolutely. There's also days when, I got, one day in particular, I got about 12 calls that were 5 to 10 minutes each. Each one of those calls paid me $285 in my pocket.
Damn.
That was a good day.
Yeah.
And it was go out, run a wire brush into a trailer plug connector and plug it back in, and your lights work. See ya. Then there's days when you go out there and the semi truck just ran over an elk, and the elk exploded when it hit the air tank on the bottom of the truck.
Ooh. And
there's elk bits dripping off the bottom of the truck when I'm laying down there trying to put back together airlines and wires, and it stinks, and you got elk entrails all over you by the time you get out from under that truck. Miserable afternoon.
Yeah.
But
you scoop up some of that, throw it in a lunchbox.
Oh, there wasn't even that much of it to scoop up. I mean, it was bits of hide hanging down. You had to pull off and fling aside so you could put a new connector in that airline.
Yeah. I thought a long time ago about starting a mobile rescue operation like that.
It's great money.
Yeah. Just give us a call, like a AAA kind of deal, but we'll show up and
and
hire diesel mechanics and whatever else, whatever your problem is, give us a call. We'll show up, fix it.
Yep. And I had no diesel mechanic experience at all when I started that job.
Yeah.
I had a mechanical aptitude.
Yeah.
And I understand most of the wiring, and I got a basic understanding of how diesels work. I did have a lot of automotive mechanical personal experience, nothing professional.
Yeah.
But
fuel and compression.
Yeah. And, and I've done everything on semis from changing out transmissions. We'd take them into the shop, but I can remember working under a transmission with me and my boss's wife, so to speak. She'd get under there with me, and we'd change out a transmission in an afternoon on a semi. We did many of those. Replacing clutches, replacing heads, timing, adjusting valve lash, replacing the whole drive unit. Had one truck I worked on, took the front drive system off of the motor, the gear drive set that drives the compressor and the cams and everything else.
Yeah.
I had to take that off and replace it. There was one of the gears that something happened, and it ended up just becoming a wheel instead of a gear.
That's another thing too.
Yeah.
Where we're so, people these days have it so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. But that one was kind of funny.
Hydraulic, automatic adjusting lifters and all that stuff.
Yep.
Like back in the day when you bought a new car, the owner's manual it was basically a miniature Haynes manual.
Right. It told you how to adjust
valve lash, and how to adjust your distributor timing and all that.
Yep.
All that stuff was in there.
Yep. And now the computer does all of that for you.
Now the computer does all of it for you, and all the manual says is
call the shop.
Yeah. Call a local dealership to get this replaced, or
Yep.
there's I'm sure there's something in there that says cruise control is not autopilot.
Right.
Please keep hands on the wheel.
Yep. No, yesterday I ended up changing a oil pressure sender
Yeah.
on my Tahoe. Made me swear and cuss at engineers.
Oh, yeah.
Because that sender unit is on the top back of the engine, and I've got big hands, and I couldn't get into it. I got the thing out, and then I dropped the new one, and I didn't know where it went.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it. I had to buy another one. Then I dropped it. I knew where it went, but I couldn't get it. I made my wife crawl up in there on top of that. She found the first one I dropped.
Nice.
But then I couldn't get it to go in. I had to call my nephew and had him come and do it. And, realistically, it should have been about an hour job. And I spent probably 5 hours on it.
Yeah.
And man, I was over the engineering thing. But, and I think about the aspect of, I used to have a 1969 Cadillac Calais. Loved that car. It was like driving your couch around. Had a 472 in it, weighed about 5,300 pounds.
It's not bad.
No, I could get with that car, as long as I was being nice to it, about 14, 15 miles to the gallon.
And what year was that?
It was a 1969.
69?
Yeah.
Yeah. 14? That's not bad for that.
No, It was not bad at all. And then I had also at the same time a 2001 Chevy Suburban with a 8.1 liter, which is a 496. Pretty close to the same size motor. I think it weighed 5,700 pounds, I want to say. So roughly the same kind of weight. Arguably, the Suburban was more aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Got about 12 miles to the gallon. So they put all these computers and everything else in there, all the electronics in there to make it more efficient. And it's not.
Yeah.
Over engineering.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Some of the stuff that they're doing, they make it more efficient. I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that they miss in design. Like when they're designing an engine, I guarantee they split it up among several engineers.
Oh, absolutely.
So one guy's working on the fuel management system, some guy's working on this, some guy's working on that, blah, blah, blah. And if they're not talking to each other, then that's when you end up with a suspension crossbar that passes within an inch in front of your oil pan drain plug. And so when you pull that plug, it hits all the oil coming out, hits that crossbar, and just sprays everywhere.
Yep, every time.
I've seen that. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
It's like, why? Why didn't you just talk to the guy next to you and say, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, maybe I should move this drain plug down about a half an inch, get a little bit more drain angle on it.
Yep. Well, and that's, I've got it.
Or the, I don't remember which one it is. I think it's Chevy. I can't remember what model, but the starter is on the top of the engine underneath the air intake.
Sure.
And you have to pull the entire fuel manifold off.
Yep.
And the intake manifold, all that just to get to your starter.
Right. Yep. And they're doing that with alternators too.
Yeah.
Yep. And, I've got an old 1998 Land Rover Discovery.
Oh, that's sweet.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's broken. It's a Land Rover. But to change the transmission filter in it, I have to take out a cross member out of the frame.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So poor design there, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I just bought, it's a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Mm-hmm. And it's got the 3-liter diesel in it.
Oh, nice.
Excellent rig. So far, this is the greatest winter rig I've ever owned.
Right.
And that diesel, in the summertime when you're using summer blend, I mean, it gets ridiculous mileage.
Right. Yeah.
Like on the freeway, I'm getting like 40, 45.
Nice.
Sometimes, depending on where I'm going. I mean, it's insane.
Uh-huh.
And I just happened to find it. Like I was looking at a Wrangler for a while, and just the color that I wanted and the features that I wanted and all this stuff, like it was just kind of out of my price range for what I was looking at. And then I went and drove one, and I was like, man, you know what? These are not as cool as I thought they were going to be. Uh-huh. And then I also thought more practical, like, okay, well, why do I really want one? Like taking the top off and all that in the summertime. Yeah, it seems all cool and shit, but where am I going to store the top when it's off?
Right.
Because I'm not getting a soft top.
Right.
And then I'm not going to put it back on every night, which means I can't leave stuff in the car.
Yep.
So when am I ever really going to take it off?
Right.
Like, I'm not.
Right.
I would rather just be lazy and push a button and open a sunroof.
Yep.
As opposed to taking the top off.
Absolutely.
Plus, in my opinion, they drive like crap.
They do.
Like, unless you spend a ridiculous amount of money on suspension and lifting them and all this stuff, they don't ride very well. It's not that comfortable.
Right.
So the day that I decided, okay, never mind, I'm going to go with a Grand Cherokee, I got back on Craigslist and this one popped up, and it's red with black accents, which is what I wanted.
Right.
It's just after the bastard year, which is 2013. So most of the bugs have been worked out.
Yep.
And then it didn't say in the description that it was a diesel, but I always wanted the diesel because I've driven one back in like 2008 when I worked at a body shop, and they were just badass.
Nice.
Like, so much power in such a small package. So I went to go look at this one. I get there and the guy's like, he goes, yeah, I think that's the diesel too. And I'm like, oh, really? So I go out, sit in it, fire it up, take it for a test drive. I'm like, well, I guess I'm buying a Jeep today. But yeah, it's amazing what they can do with the technology and stuff that they've put in them, and the efficiency that they can get out of them.
Oh yeah.
But it also does make things more complicated.
Much more.
And I don't think necessarily the problem is the technology. I think the problem is the way that they gear the technology to force you and most people to have to take it to a dealership to get it worked on.
Right.
They've made them so non-user friendly.
Yep.
And that's for a purpose.
Well, it is.
They do it on purpose.
Yeah, there's more money in having a maintenance work done at the shop.
Yeah. Like Ford is the worst, in my opinion. They are the absolute worst.
Yep.
Like Chevy, even though they're owned by China now, I mean, at least they still have the decency to put an alternator up towards the top where it's somewhat accessible.
Yep.
And they don't, as far as I know, they're not locking all of the electronics together into one package, which then has to be programmed with your VIN number and everything else, because that's what Ford does. Right. Ford has put all of your ECM and your PCM, I think, are still separate, but your body control module, security control module, 4x4 module, everything has now been packed into one unit, which is in the cluster. Yep. And you can't just replace it. Right. You have to, even if you go get a used one, you still have to take it into the dealership and pay something ridiculous like $1,000 to have them reprogram it and flash it to your vehicle with your VIN number and all that. Yep. And supposedly it's all for safety and security, right? So that it's less likely to have people steal your stuff. Right. Sure. But why does it cost $1,000 for some dude to plug in a computer and press a few buttons and then walk away and go have coffee? Right. Like, it's not that I can't understand what they're doing. It's the fact that you're going to charge me $1,000 for that. Right. $50 maybe. Right. But not $1,000.
Well, and then, on a Ford diesel, for example, the first step in replacing the injectors.
Lift the body.
Yeah. Take the cab off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Undo all the cab bolts and lift it. Yep. Yeah. Because they put, some of the head bolts, are back under the cowl. Right. You can't get to them without lifting the body.
Yeah. And injectors are a wear item.
Yep. Yeah. So, right.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So, yep.
Yeah. That was one of the first things I saw when, the 6.0 came out. Yep. And they had all those issues with blowing head gaskets and stuff. Yeah. Yep. And they were claiming that, they wouldn't cover stuff under warranty because they were claiming that, it's, because people are putting Edge and Banks tuners in them and you're pumping way too much fuel and air and you're over compressing everything. Like, okay, I get that. Right. But here's the problem on your end is that you're using torque to yield head bolts. Yep. On an engine that you shouldn't be using torque to yield head bolts on. Right. Yep. So. Yep. Yes, you're putting more pressure in there, but the problem stems really from those bolts that stretch. Yep. When they shouldn't stretch. Right. When you used to use hardened bolts for eons. Yep. Why would you change to TTY bolts? Right. What purpose does that serve?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand it other than it makes it a little bit easier to assemble them in the production facility.
I mean, maybe.
That's, either that or those bolts are cheaper.
I mean, probably because they're cheaper.
I mean, yeah, if they can save 5 cents a bolt and they use,
which I get,
bolts,
I get, right? And that's the other thing too, is a lot of them, the newer ones, they're making the bodies out of aluminum.
Right.
Okay, well, you're saving some money there.
Yep.
Weight and everything else.
Yep.
Cool. There's some things that you just shouldn't skimp on.
Right.
And especially when it comes to a culture of people who notoriously will take your product and
abuse it
and install tuners and everything else. Like, how many people out there really these days are running them completely stock?
Right. Very few.
I mean, you're talking maybe 30%.
Right.
So maybe you should think of that and be in touch with your client base and say, okay, what can we skimp on this stuff? Head bolts.
Yep.
No, we're not going to use the cheap shit.
Right.
Because those are going to be an issue.
Yep.
But then again, when you look at corporate horseshit, of course, why wouldn't they say, yeah, no, let's skimp on those? Because then
those
we
are going to be an issue.
Because then we can make them, we can make them have to come buy more and not claim it on a warranty because they did something that voids the warranty.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all in the wording and what the lawyers do with the contract.
And it's, and so many things worldwide, in every aspect of life. Yeah. When you have a problem, follow the money.
Oh, yeah. Follow the money trail. I used to love Ford. I used to be a diehard Ford guy.
Right.
And until the last one that I owned, I had an 04 F-150 with that bullshit 5.4 Triton in it. And I mean, I replaced.
Did you blow the back spark plug?
Oh, never. I never had an issue with the spark plugs.
Okay.
I did change them, but thankfully, whoever owned it before me put the Champion single piece plugs in. So when I replaced them, taking them out, I was damn near shitting my pants because they were like, they didn't want to come out.
Yep.
But once I got them, none of them ever broke.
Nice.
I pulled the first one out and realized what it was, and I was like, oh, thank God. And so the rest of them, I was just like, whatever.
Right. Yep. Yep.
But I put them back in with a little bit of anti-seize, so I wouldn't have that problem if I ever did it again later.
Right. Well, yeah. And, and having issues like that to where companies like Snap-on now make a specific tool to fix the problem,
so many special tools for that truck. And I was like, why are there so many special tools just to fix this thing?
Yep.
Like, I've owned cars where I could do damn near everything with a socket wrench, 10, 12, and a 15 millimeter.
Right.
Why is this so difficult?
Screwdriver and a pair of pliers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that truck. I mean, I did brakes on it when I first bought it because they were toast, which whatever. I bought it that way, so that's on me. But the engine, I mean, other than my first car, which was a 77 Toyota Hilux two-wheel drive, baby shit green, the ugliest truck I've ever seen on the planet. But I mean, that thing went everywhere. Right. I took that into places it should have never have gone, and it came back out just fine.
Yep.
Rebuilt the engine in that, made a cherry bomb out of it, yada, yada. I did a bunch of stuff to that. Other than that, I've never had so many issues and had done so much work to a rig up until I owned this last truck.
Right.
And the more I dug into it and the more work that I did on it, the more I realized, man, I should never have bought this thing, and I will never buy another one. Ever.
Well, and the Ford 6.0, once you do the bulletproof on it, so to speak,
right?
Man, they're fantastic.
Yeah, which is the head bolts and I think it's something with the radiator.
The head bolts, the oil cooler.
Yeah, the head bolts, oil cooler, and then the turbo. You replace the return line.
Yeah.
The oil return.
Yes.
Because the original factory one is actually too small.
Yeah.
And you basically cook the turbo because it can't get the oil through fast enough.
Yep.
So once you do those three things, I've heard that they are literally bulletproof.
Yeah. And, we had so many of those come in the shop when I was doing the diesel repair that we did that on. Yeah. And, boy, I got quick at it.
I bet. But, yeah. Well, that's how I got to be working at the body shop doing Dodge and Chevy bedsides.
Right.
Because before Dave Smith built their own auto body shop, we did half of their lot damage and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So it was between us and Heyman's.
Right.
And they kind of just split between the two of us,
Sure.
Yeah, it was weird how many trucks you would get off the lot that had bedside damage.
Right.
And I don't know if it was just the guys who move them around were banging them up, or... I mean, there was some guy at one point who just absolutely hated Dave Smith and thought they were the devil, and he climbed up on the mountain just below where the gondola in Kellogg goes up,
right,
and was shooting at cars in the Dave Smith parking lot with like a 30-06. Just
okay.
So we had a whole bunch of cars that came in that had bullet holes in them we had to fix.
Nice.
But
yeah, I never heard about that one.
Yeah. I got really good though at replacing Dodge and Chevy bedsides. I could do about 2 a day.
Okay.
Just slam them out.
Yeah. Yeah. Repetition definitely helps a person be efficient.
Yeah. The Chevys are definitely easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Thing that gets me in with them now is how much of it is just glued together.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why the Chevys were easier.
Right.
Because they just they used pinch welds in very specific places. And they were very strong. The Dodge, all the way across the top cap of the bedside, they have, I don't know what it is, but it's probably some kind of glue that NASA uses on the space shuttle. Right. It's ridiculously hard and does not come off for anything. You have to heat the hell out of it to get it off.
Okay.
And so the first couple that I did, I tried just trying to chisel them off and ended up almost destroying the inner bedside to do that. So it got to a point where I said to hell with it. Whenever I got a Dodge in, the first thing I did was take my nibbler and I would literally just cut right along the ridge just below the top cap. Just cut the entire bedside off and just throw it on the ground because there wasn't any other glue other than on that top cap.
Right.
And then I would pull out the torch. I would heat the hell out of that whole top cap until it was just melting out of there, and then just scrape it off after I drilled out all the pinch welds on the inside.
Yep.
And that was easy, super easy.
Right.
Then trying to manhandle everything, and
Yeah, once you figure out the process.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I could tear one of those apart in about 20 minutes.
Right.
Versus an hour.
Yep. Yeah, that was. That turbocharger I talked about out there on the side of the freeway that took me so long.
Yeah.
Once I figured out the actual tool that I needed to use, which didn't seem like the right tool until I used it.
Right.
Once I figured that out, then it was like, sure. Once I figured out that tool set for that particular process, the next turbo was easy.
Yeah. And, repetition and.
Yep. And the weird thing with doing semi-truck work was we would get rashes of things.
Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 brand new, I want to say Kenworth fuel pumps that I had to replace out on the side of the freeway, like within a week.
Right.
The first one was like, oh, well, this is weird. And then the second one, as soon as they told me what it was, it's like, no, you need a new fuel pump. And the third one, okay, I'll be back. I'll be up in a bit. I'm going to go get a fuel pump for you, and you just know what's going on then. For whatever reason.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, early spring and late fall, there's a rash of radiators on semis. when that weather transition is happening.
Yeah.
We had so many radiators that we had to replace.
Frost or something, freezing.
I don't know. I don't know what actually would cause the issue, but there was.
It's got to be some kind of icing or something.
Something
just degrades them and beats them up.
Yep.
Running that many miles,
Oh yeah, it's hard to imagine, but by the time you get about 1 million miles on a semi, it's broke in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's another reason why I went for the diesel.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure it's a Mercedes diesel.
I think it is.
But the Mercedes engines themselves, I haven't heard really too many bad things about.
Right.
And any diesel, if you take care of it, you keep the oil changed and all that stuff.
Yep.
You can rod the piss out of them.
Oh yeah.
And they're going to last.
Yep.
They're going to last.
Yep. Just don't increase that chamber pressure much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't plan on doing any mods to mine. Mine's going to be stock. But,
Yeah.
But still, though, that Jeep diesel, even though it's half the weight, still has the same tow rating that my V8 truck had, that Ford did.
Yep.
So, I mean, that thing alone, I was like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
I could pull the same amount of weight with this thing. I mean, you wouldn't want to tow a trailer that's probably longer than the car is.
Right.
But, I mean, still.
Right. Although I did tow a 30-foot RV from St. George, Utah to up here with my Discovery.
Yeah.
That was sketchy.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you have the right hitch and all that. If you got, the weight displacing hitch and you got sway bars and all that stuff, you're probably fine. But
it was a little strange when a semi would go by, or I'd go by a semi. The air coming off the front of the trailer, when my RV hit that air, it'd push me one way.
Right.
And then when the back end of the RV hit that air, it'd push me the other way.
Yeah. It boggles me how many times, especially in the last year or two, I see people on the road towing a trailer who should not be towing a trailer.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the ass end of their rig is squatted all the way to the bump stops.
Yep.
And they have no sway bars or nothing. They're just
no equalizing.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're pulling like a 30-foot trailer with, a Honda SUV, and it's just barely moving.
Yep.
Like, ugh, God, you guys are going to die.
Yeah. And they're going to be going down a hill and hit a bump wrong, and it's going to just push them into wherever it wants to push them.
Yep. Yeah. I think, and that's where I'm torn, because I hate saying that, oh, well, the government regulation, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think there should at least be a mandatory, like, trailer tow training when you go to get your license.
There probably should, or when you go to buy an RV.
Maybe even then, yeah.
I mean, they make you do that with a motorcycle.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's true. If to get your motorcycle endorsement, you have to go through, the motorcycle training and all that.
Yep.
Why is that not included for towing trailers?
Sure.
Because there's plenty of people who cause a lot of danger on the highway towing when they shouldn't be towing.
And people that absolutely cannot get a handle on backing up a trailer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you see those videos on, like, Facebook and YouTube of people trying to back down a boat launch ramp?
Right. Yep.
It's not that hard.
Yep. Yeah. But apparently they've managed to figure out how to make a truck do that for you now.
Yeah. The new Fords that have that auto backup stuff.
Yeah. I don't know ridiculous. How that works, but
yeah. You know what? If we would just teach people how to back up with a trailer, you wouldn't need that.
Well, and the same thing is true with the vast majority of what they're calling safety enhancements now.
Yeah.
The lane keep assist or whatever it is, and the cruise control, the adaptive cruise control that keeps you from driving into the back of the vehicle in front of you.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that though. It's so like the Chevys have that auto drive now.
Right.
Where it'll just drive down the road for you.
Yep.
You can just sit there. And I find it funny that in the commercials, they always show somebody like they turn that on, and then they basically just sit back and they're just chilling, listening to the music and stuff. It's like, why don't you just read a book?
Yeah.
How about you take a nap? Something like that.
Sure.
But then if you look at the bottom of the screen in the fine print, it's like, please keep hands on the wheel at all times, blah, blah, blah. User is responsible for all this. Like, then what the hell is the point of it?
Right.
If I have to keep my hands on the wheel.
If I have to keep paying attention.
And I have to be in control, then it's not driving itself.
Yep.
So it's not really doing anything.
Yep.
But then, I mean, why would I pay the extra $6,000 to get that feature if it doesn't just do it for me?
And it's making drivers worse.
Yep. Like, if you're in a car driving, you should be in control and you should know what you're doing and be paying attention, not kicking back, taking a nap, or reading a book.
Right.
Letting the vehicle just do it for you when they obviously have not perfected that yet.
Right. And I guess there has to be that process that they have to run into the snags until they perfect it.
Right.
But
somebody's got to die.
Unfortunately, the snags are people lose lives.
Somebody's got to die before they're like, oh, okay, maybe we should work on this a little more.
Yep. Well, and there was a couple of years ago with, I think it was one of the EVs
Well, Tesla's had issues
down in Arizona where the woman was not paying attention and a bicycle drove out in front of her.
Yeah.
And because the car was driving itself.
Right.
And yeah.
I know Tesla's had some problems, and like I think it's the self-driving Priuses or whatever that Domino's is using to deliver pizza.
Oh, okay.
I think a couple of those have had problems.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, they're not perfect, man. It's a machine.
Yeah.
It's not a human being that's going to look at everything as quickly as possible and say, okay, I'd rather crash into this light pole than hit that kid on a bicycle.
Right.
It's a machine that's going to say, I don't want to destroy myself. I'm going to crash into the bicycle with a kid on it because I don't even know that it's a kid on it.
Right. And then, they also don't take into account the unpredictability of what people are going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I just think there's instances that a machine isn't going to make the decision that we would want.
Right.
Because it doesn't think the same way that we think.
Right. Yep.
If you want to say that it thinks at all.
Yep. Yeah. And, and I think that's one of the biggest factors is it doesn't take into unpredictability of people that it has to interact with. Right.
But then that's where they're looking towards AI and all that stuff to fix these things. It's like, I don't know about that.
Right.
That's a whole other completely different discussion in and of itself.
It is.
Even Elon Musk is like, no, AI is not the way to go for everything. In fact, it's really bad.
Right. Well, yeah. I don't know. We've all seen the movie, mm-hmm. It never ends well for humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Terminator scared the living shit out of me when I was a kid.
Right. Yep.
Still kind of does.
Yep.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is you look at Star Trek and all those shows, right?
Uh-huh.
And they were so far ahead of their time. Like even the old communicator where they flipped it open.
Yep.
And Kirk is talking to somebody. Yep. Okay, well that's 1980s flip phones.
Sure. Yep.
And then they advanced to what they had in Next Generation and all that stuff. Blah, blah, blah.
With the iPad or smartphone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And now we have that. We have the little pads and all that junk.
Yep.
Well, and it's just everything that they've come up with. Now we have it.
Sure.
And it's almost like it just keeps predicting it.
Yep. Well, even the doors that opened and closed as they walked on and off of the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a couple of guys standing behind set that pulled those doors out of the way.
Right. But now every grocery store has that.
The guy that ran Otis Elevators said, I want my elevators to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Figured it out.
Yeah.
I think it was Otis, but yeah.
Probably was Otis, yeah. Yeah, it's weird to think, okay, does somebody think that and put it into a TV show and then someone figures out how to make it true, or does the TV show just predict what's going to happen?
Right.
That's a weird question. Chicken or the egg, I guess. But
right. And I think there's some of both.
Yeah. Somebody's like, wow, that would be badass. How can we make that real?
Yeah.
But still, when you look at, what is it? I can't remember the name of the company right now, but there's several different robotics companies out there that are making like the little 4-legged dogs and stuff that do stuff.
Yep.
And most of them have banded together. I think recently they all came up with this pact saying that, they were trying, one of them was trying to get everyone to sign this pact that would say we're never going to weaponize our inventions, right? Yes, we may sell them to the military, but they are not to be weaponized.
Right.
Okay, for one, you sell the shit to the military, they have their own people. They have their own scientists. Right. Guaranteed they have their own robotics laboratories. They're going to figure out how to weaponize it.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to do it anyway, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Even if you don't do it and sell it to them with, SAM missiles mounted to the back, they're going to figure out how to do it on their own.
That's what the military does.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're not going to stop that. And two, maybe you guys are all banding together, but I guarantee China doesn't give a shit.
Right.
They're going to do whatever they want.
Right.
So they have their own robotics laboratories that are building stuff exactly like yours, if not stealing your designs, because that's what they do.
Yep.
And then they're going to mount M16s and missiles and whatever else to the back. And then they'll probably sell their stuff to whoever wants to buy it.
Right.
So it's going to be out there.
Absolutely.
It's like people that are so against guns and, guns should just be gotten rid of. Well, it's never going to happen. You can't uninvent the wheel.
Right. It can't happen.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it just totally amuses me sometimes at the argument of, well, let's just make another law.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's already illegal to kill somebody.
Yeah.
But let's make another law that says it's illegal to kill somebody with this gun.
Yeah. It's illegal to drive over your neighbor with your car because they flipped you the bird and you're having a bad day.
Right.
People still do it every day anyway.
Right.
Should we outlaw cars then? Why haven't we outlawed pencils? Because you can stab somebody with a pencil and kill them.
Absolutely.
Why is it guns?
Yep.
Why are they such the bugaboo?
Yeah,
well, because they're a tool and they're really good at doing their job.
Right.
I mean, that is what it is.
It is.
But it's not the gun's fault. It's the people who are using them.
Right.
And unfortunately, we have a lot of people with mental instabilities and problems that are not being addressed. So you're just trying to put a Band-Aid on a wound that needs sutures.
Right.
And it's not going to work.
No. Yeah.
Criminals don't give a shit about laws. That's why they're criminals. They do what they do because they don't care.
Absolutely. And and like you said, you could try to ban them. You can't take them all away.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care how much you try, you can't.
Yeah.
And
the black market, they're available.
Absolutely.
Criminals know how to get them.
People know how to get cocaine, heroin.
Yeah.
It's not legal.
And criminals are actually, I mean, they're fairly smart.
Yeah. A lot of them.
Even if you were to completely outlaw guns and destroy all of them, I mean, with advancements in, 3D printers and everything, they've already proven that you can 3D print a gun and it works just fine.
Absolutely.
They'll find a way.
Yep.
If you want to, and even if they can't do that, they'll just start blowing people up or they'll start stabbing them or whatever.
Yep.
If you really want to kill somebody, you'll find a way to do it.
Absolutely. And they're showing that every day, everywhere.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, it's more about control of us than it is about solving problems.
I think that's absolutely what it's about. Of course, there's been a lot of things going on in the last few years that's what it's been about.
Yeah.
So, about compliance and who can they get to do what.
Yeah, right. Boy, that's a tangent we went on.
Oh, man.
So what are you doing right now?
I am roasting coffee.
Roasting coffee.
I work for, it's Silver Cup Coffee Roasters / Union Coffee Roasters in over in Kellogg. Union Coffee, of course, is a couple of shops in Coeur d'Alene.
I didn't realize they had a coffee roaster in Kellogg.
Yeah. Yep. That's where all of our coffee's roasted right now. That may change in the not too distant future, but it may not. I don't know.
So do you guys just get like shipments of the raw beans and then
we do,
and you throw them in like a giant pot and cook them?
More or less. The roaster, basically it's got our roaster's, I think it's a 12 kilogram roaster. No, 25 kilogram roaster, excuse me. I don't know. We do 24 pounds of green beans. Okay. Whatever that translates to in kilograms.
Yeah.
At any rate, we put 24 pounds of raw green coffee beans in, and we've got a certain profile that we run Brazil beans at, a different profile for Colombian beans, a different profile for Sumatra beans. And you just monitor temperatures and how long it takes for the temperature to fluctuate, to change to what you want it to. Then you reset, and it's kind of fascinating. The upside is I get to drink a lot of coffee,
a lot of fresh coffee.
But yeah. But no, it is. It's fascinating. Of course, every now and then I miss one of my set points and things change. Mm-hmm.
So would you consider yourself then like semi-retired?
I would say I'm, mostly retired.
Yeah.
I do this 3 days a week, which translates to somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 pounds a week that I roast. And then my boss, he roasts 2 other days per week, although he does an awful lot of the blending and bagging, where I just do most of the roasting. which kind of frees him up to do a lot of that blending and bagging.
Yeah.
And
so how did you get into this gig?
Well, I've been an avid coffee drinker for a lot of years. And when I moved back into Kellogg, I happened to see him open up his shop, and I started buying coffee from him. And, you know, I go in once a week to the roastery and buy a pound of coffee from him. And then after he'd been doing it for several years and, you know, quit his primary job and transitioned into roasting full time, then a couple years later, he hired another guy to help him roast coffee. And that gentleman moved away. And when I found out he was moving, I said, well, hey, I'll help you out. And that was kind of all it took. And he brought me in and trained me. And I've been doing it now for about a year and a half, I guess.
Was it more of just like a side gig, just to give you something to do?
It's a lot
little
of
extra money.
That's a lot of it. It's just something to do, something to, you know, to get me out of the house, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe get a little extra dollars coming in so that I can afford to pay somebody else to do what I should be doing, building the house.
Right.
But you know, there's a lot of that stuff that I just don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
And like I say, there's things that I'm so slow at building the house now that I used to do quite quickly, that I'm better off paying somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
And,
I get that. I'm not even 40 yet, and I'm to the point where, especially working on my car, there's a lot of shit where I'm like, you know, I could do this myself. I've done it a million times. I just don't want to. Right.
Yep. No, I remember thinking, man, if I feel like this when I'm 35, what am I going to feel like when I'm 50?
Yeah.
Then I remember thinking, if I feel like this when I'm 50, what am I going to feel like when I'm 60? And well, maybe it's not getting any worse, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's still stuff that I'll go out and I'll crawl under my rig and I'll do, I think mainly just because, for one, I want to save the money.
Right.
Because in some aspects, I'm a cheap ass like that. But in other aspects, I think I also understand, like, I can't just pay somebody else to do everything for me.
Right.
Like, there are some things I still need to do for myself just because it's good for you.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's like I say, I, you know, did replace that oil pressure sender in Tahoe yesterday.
Right.
And it took way longer than it should have.
Yeah.
You know,
you still got out there and you did it, though.
Sure. Well, mostly.
Mostly.
You know, and I've set myself up a pretty good shop. At home, I've got a lift in the shop to where I can put a car up in the air.
Oh, so jealous.
Makes things nice. Unfortunately, right now, we're in the process, and my power in my shop is down. We're actually building off grid.
Oh,
and I've got something messed up in my wires going out to my shop. I think. Well, I actually pulled them up with the excavator last summer. Thought I had them repaired correctly, but evidently not. So I don't have any power in the shop. So I ended up doing this in the house, in the garage, in the house. And,
that sucks. Need to get that fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, my shop ends up being a lot of storage for building materials right now.
Yeah. As will happen.
And, you know, my wife's little convertible and my motorcycle and my lawnmower. But on the upside, they're not sitting out in the snow.
Yeah. Yeah, I just bought a Harley last year, so making plans this year to go take some decent trips.
Yep. Well, work up to it.
Yeah.
Don't try to do 1,000-mile ride first.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, I mean, I might do 1,000-mile ride, but I know where my limit is.
Right.
I mean, I've been riding for quite a few years, so.
Yep. No, the longest single day I've done on my bike was 499 and a half miles.
Ooh, yeah.
And, you know, that BMW is a pretty comfortable ride.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, my old boss at the body shop, he had the, not the GS, what was it? It was BMW's Sport Touring, but it was the R model.
Okay. Okay.
I think it was either 11 or 1200 cc's. I mean, it was a nice bike.
Right.
It had the automatic adjustable windshield and all that stuff. I mean,
oh, that sounds like a K.
Yeah, it might have been a K. Yeah. And the great thing about that Boxer engine is it had the highway pegs built into the heads.
Oh, nice.
So they just flip out.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that thing.
No, the Boxer would have been an R model.
Yeah, it was like riding on a Cadillac.
Right.
You get on that thing.
Yeah.
And just go down the highway. You don't feel anything. You don't hear anything. It's just so smooth.
You know, and anymore they've put so much. It's got all of those same sensors that the cars have in them.
Yeah.
It's got electric cruise control.
Yeah.
You know, it's got anti-lock brakes.
Yep. I had a 2008 Yamaha FJR 1300, which was Yamaha's sport touring, and that thing was a beast.
Right.
It had a 4-cylinder in it, and I mean, it would do 0 to 60 in, I mean, probably less than 3 seconds.
Right.
But it had ABS. It had all of that stuff, which was nice.
Yeah, and you know, and that all really was real beneficial to me when I did go to do my motorcycle endorsement.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, even my Harley, it's an 07, and it has the automatic cruise control and all that stuff.
Yep.
Like, I have an 87 Honda, and cruise control on that is a throttle lock.
Right.
And it's non-adjustable. It doesn't do it on its own.
Sure.
So if you hit a hill, you have to shut it off, and you have to give it some more gas or adjust it or whatever.
Yep.
Like, you're constantly having to adjust it to the road.
Right.
It's not just to set it and forget it.
Right.
And it doesn't have ABS. It doesn't have any of that stuff.
Yep.
So you have to keep mindful of that when you come into a turn that's a little too tight, or when something gets in your way.
Yep.
You know, that Harley though that I bought, I mean, that thing, going from that 87 Honda to that, I mean, that's it's a whole other level.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, and you touch a brake, you touch a clutch, you touch anything, and the cruise shuts off. Yeah, just like it does in the car.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, it is nice though. But that's why I bought it. It's the touring, the ultra classic electric light.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So it's got the trunk and all the bags and everything. And
see, and that's, my wife wants me to get something more like that.
Yeah.
Or like the K1300 or something in the BMWs. She doesn't like mine because she's sitting up too high. She feels like she's going to fall off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
And it's a tall bike, you know, but I'm a tall guy, and I actually picked that BMW because it's tall. Right.
It works for you.
Yeah. But yeah, I did a 500-mile day, did a loop, which was really a nice ride. I went down the White Pine Scenic Route, which is going down Highway 3 through St. Mary's, and then down, I think I went into Julietta and then over to Lewiston, and then I went back from Lewiston, went over Lolo Pass to Missoula. Yeah. And then came from Missoula back over Lookout Pass.
That's a good ride.
It was a really nice ride. And
I've been, you said over Thompson?
Lolo,
okay. Yeah. I've been wanting to go over to Missoula and then down south and then come back over Lolo. Right. And stop and probably stay a night at Losha Lodge.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Loxaw Lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard it pronounced several different ways.
Right. Yeah.
Do they actually have gas there?
I think they do. Okay. You probably don't want to buy it there, though.
Yeah.
When you're in Missoula, though, you can get, in Montana, they call it snowmobile fuel, which is the non-ethanol.
Okay. Yeah, I've done like the map where you first turn, I think it's from Lolo, and you start going up through the pass. Right. And that comes out at, what is it, Kamei or?
Yeah, you go down through Kamei, and then it goes on down to Lewiston.
Yeah, and so when you look at that route all the way over the pass through there, like there's nothing for fuel all the way through there. No. And it's basically out of range for my Honda.
Oh, really?
Because I had looked at doing it before when I just had the Honda, and I was like, man,
okay,
I would have to bring fuel with me to make it all the way over. And then I looked at that Loxaw Lodge, and it said that they have fuel, and I was like, Do they actually have fuel still?
Yeah, and I'm sure they do.
Would it be worth buying it there?
It's probably horrendously expensive, and I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on a bike, though, for 3 gallons,
Right,
probably not that bad.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't want to fill up a car there.
Right. See, and that's the upside to my bike is I've got 8.5 gallons in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I miss about that Yamaha. Because it was a 6.5 gallon tank, and it got about 55 to the gallon.
Right. Yeah, I get about 45 with mine.
Yeah. That thing, I could go from Post Falls all the way to Tacoma, and I didn't have to fill up unless I wanted to. I could have probably made it all the way to around... I probably could have made it to Astoria, Oregon.
Right.
I had a friend who lived just past Astoria. So one year I took that on a trip over there.
Nice.
Yeah. And it went that whole way.
Yep. You know, and I was surprised on mine when I bought trail tires for it, knobby tires.
Yeah.
Man, it feels so much better on the pavement.
Mm-hmm. Instead of the 60/40 or?
Well,
because a lot of those adventure bikes, they have like dual comp tires, right? So you can ride street and dirt.
Right. And I bought the Heidenau, they're called Scouts, I think. K60 Scout, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't remember. It's been a while. I've gotten a pretty good amount of wear out of them, but prior to that, I had Continental highway tires on it, and they just didn't feel as secure.
Yeah.
Those Heidenaus feel so much more secure on the pavement, even though they're a true dirt tire. They're a knobby.
Huh.
But yeah, they're not even they might be a 60/40, but.
Yeah, it's probably just the composition of the rubber.
Right.
Whatever.
I was a little leery when I first put them on. Thinking, man, these are going to feel like I'm washing out or something. But no, they were much tighter.
Yeah, maybe if they're just a little bit softer, they have a better grip or something.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But they do vibrate a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, I run the dual compounds on mine. I can't remember which ones I went with this time. I used to always run the Michelin Pilot 2s.
Right.
So they're harder in the center and softer on the sides.
Yep.
So better for cornering, but then they last longer because most of the time you're riding straight down the road on the center of the tire.
Yep.
They make a 3 compound tire now too.
Oh, okay.
So those are supposed to last even longer.
Right.
But I can't remember which ones I got this time. I think I got I can't remember. There's something in that realm though. They're supposed to last forever.
Cool.
Hopefully I'll get some miles out of them.
Yeah.
Well, damn, Bert. We've been at this for 3 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
Doesn't feel like 3 hours.
It doesn't. Nope. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah, we can probably wrap it up right here.
Okay. That sounds all right.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming.
You bet.
Having a chit chat. It was good talking to you.
Nice day. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's good hearing about the zinc mining and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, considering that, again, we use zinc in damn near everything.
And I think we do. I mean, even your copper penny isn't copper anymore. It's zinc.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
It's interesting to hear, I mean, at least back then, how it's processed and how we get it.
Yep.
Because that's the thing is a lot of people don't understand what it takes to get all of this cool stuff that we have.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
It's like copper and everything else that goes into all these electronics that we have. They're so cool.
Right.
I mean, it's not just copper.
Right.
It's gold
and silver and Yep.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with our food.
Right.
We go to the store, we buy a steak, we go home.
Yep.
You don't realize what it takes to actually get that.
Yep. And talking about buying food, I was talking to a younger kid last summer, and they were talking about meat. And, well, why do you have to kill cows to get your meat? Why can't you just go to the grocery store and buy it? And it's like, where do you think it comes from?
Yeah, where do you think it comes from, dude?
So, yeah, that just amused me. But that's part of the problems with, I don't know if it's an urban upbringing versus some more of the rural, or if it's just.
I think it is. Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: is I don't want to say that those people are stupid. Because it's not stupid, it's ignorance.
Right.
Which is not the same thing.
No, it's absolutely.
If you don't know, you don't know.
Absolutely.
And they don't know because they were never told and they were never taught.
Right.
Right. And they were never taught because the people who should have taught them were never probably taught either, or just didn't think to.
Right.
Because of the change in society and how we do things, they were just like, oh, that's not important.
Right.
What is important?
Yep.
Because in order to appreciate what you have and how things work and how the world works, part of that is knowing where things come from,
right?
Which includes your food.
Yep. Yep.
You know,
so, yep.
Like that steak that you're eating comes from a cow that was butchered.
Right.
That salad that you're eating comes from radishes and lettuce and carrots and everything else that was grown by some farmer who works 80 to 90 hours a week.
Yep. Yep.
And has to pay taxes and has to pay for all this fuel and has to go out and bust his ass in a field.
And anymore, he's got to pay $1 million for a tractor to do it with.
Yep.
So, yep.
Yeah. It's not just grown in, some quaint little backyard garden.
Yep.
I mean, there's some places that do that, like Pilgrim's Market here. They have their own garden now in the back where they grow a lot of their own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's pretty rad.
It is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, yep.
But I mean, you end up paying a little more for it,
right?
But they do it without chemicals and all that other crap.
Well, and you know where it comes from then.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
Yeah,
something like that, I'd probably be more apt to buy it because it is more local.
Yeah,
and my money's not going to Monsanto.
Right. I mean, I planted lettuce a week ago. Oh yeah, in my kitchen.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's coming up.
Yeah.
So.
Pallet gardens are cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then like I've seen videos of, like they take a piece of PVC pipe.
Yep.
And then they cut it and form it with a wine bottle. And then you stick your planter pots for your starts in there for different things.
Okay.
And then you can run a watering system at the top that'll flow down the sides of the inside of the pipe.
Oh, cool.
And hit all of those on the way down.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That'd be cool.
There's all kinds of different ways that you can grow stuff inside.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The biggest thing I'm discovering is you need the light.
Yeah. Which is more harder to come by. But
it is.
It can be done.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks again, Bert. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good whiskey.
Yeah.
Good whiskey. Yeah. This is that DALL-E.
Yep.
15-year single malt Scotch Highland. Again, thanks to Eric for bringing that over. Appreciate it.
Yep. So, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, this was fun. This was interesting and enjoyable. So,
yeah. Good. Yeah, I'm glad you had fun, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, they come on and, everybody's nervous at first.
Oh, sure.
Because they've never done it before.
Yep.
That's fine. But it's weird because everybody's like, well, everybody says the same thing. Well, I don't know what I would ever talk about.
Right.
And then 2-3 hours goes by.
Yeah.
Like, wow, it's been that long. Yeah.
I mean, I know we rambled a lot, but that's okay.
Yeah, but that's the point of it, is just to sit and chat.
Right.
Sit and chat, hear about you, what you've done. Again, that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I've had probably, if you count little tiny things here and there, I've worked at 2 grocery stores. I worked for an hour for a company that did blasting at a rock quarry in town. And I worked for NIC when I went to college for a year. And I wouldn't even really count that as work. They paid me to sweep floors, and most of the time I just dicked off, and it was cool because it gave me time during the night when everybody else was gone to practice more of like the auto body stuff that I was learning.
Oh, sure.
So, it was almost like a second education.
Yep.
Yeah. But then other than that, I've been working at the same place for over 15 years now.
Right. Nice.
Doing all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
But
well, I guess the one thing I didn't talk about, which was had one real interesting experience as a sandblaster.
Oh, yeah. I've done that.
We were working on an alert facility over at Fairchild Air Force Base. When they were first building this alert facility. There was nothing in it yet. And we were doing some sandblasting on the facade. And out of the corner of my eye, I caught some motion. And I looked out there, and there was a guy standing there with an M16 pointed at me.
Jesus.
And I looked around, and there was about 3 of those guys. And I'm trying to get a hold of the guy running the compressor to tell him to shut it off, because I can't stop. Because you let go of the sandblaster hose.
Yeah, it's just going to go everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And finally got him to shut it off. Well, apparently something had happened where it set off the alarm in this brand new alert facility. So that was their response. But it was a little odd looking over and having a guy standing down there pointing a rifle at you.
And nobody knew that you were out there?
They knew we were out there, but it didn't matter. The alarm went off. We weren't supposed to be in the building, so we don't know why the alarm went off, but the alarm went off.
Huh.
So their response, of course, was to secure the area.
Weird.
So, yeah, that was a little unnerving.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we used to do a lot of sandblasting, and we used the silica stuff.
Yep.
It was just horrible for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And eventually, we didn't necessarily get shut down, but the local EPA, I think, put some regulations more in place, and they came down and they were like, well, you know, they make up rules as they do, and they're like, absolutely. Well, you can't have a dust cloud that goes, you know, this high.
Right.
Oh, well, you can't use this if it has this or whatever.
Yep.
So eventually we just stopped doing our own because it got to be too much of a pain in the ass.
Right. To comply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was just too much of a liability. It's like, well, you know, what if we get a bag of something that has something in it that's not supposed to be there? Mm-hmm. You know, then it's on us. So.
Right.
And then we stopped doing it. We weren't doing it as much anyway because we found different paint products and stuff where it didn't require it.
Sure.
So the only time we do it now is if it really has to be done because it's so dirty, you know, or whatever. And then we just hire somebody to do it because it ends up being cheaper. So.
Right. Yep.
And then we did, we used to do what's called shell coat, which is this epoxy mix stuff that's really nasty. I mean, it's some of the nastiest stuff on the planet. And that was more of just a rust inhibitor to help, you know, keep the length of life on the inside of a tank longer.
Yep.
That stuff was so nasty though. We would have to suit up completely, like you're double or triple gloving.
Yep.
You've got a full suit on, and then you're taping your arms to your gloves, and then your pant legs to your boots to try and seal it up as much as possible.
Yep.
Then you've got a hood on that's a fresh air hood.
Yep.
With an airline that goes to a compressor outside, and you're crawling around inside in the dark with nothing but a flashlight and a spray gun.
Yep.
And if your line gets caught on something sharp and tears, then you've got a leak, which you get fumes mixing in with your air, and you may not even know it. And it's dangerous and hot as shit and horrible.
Yep.
Yeah, I hated every minute of it.
Yep.
I was very happy when they decided to do away with that.
Absolutely.
Because they figured out that anodes would pretty much do the same thing.
Right.
It just attracts the minerals and the rust causing stuff.
Yep.
And you just replace the anodes once in a while, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yep. Now we put them in all the hot water heaters.
Yeah. Fun times.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again, Bert.
You bet.
It's good to talk to you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Grinders, thanks for listening. Appreciate you. Have a great week and keep on grinding. Bye, everybody.